I'd like to start with when steel band actually began. Steel band began or became public on the 8th of May in 1945, around 9 o'clock, when Winston Churchill declared that World War II had ended. At that time, the people in Trinidad took to the streets to celebrate, and steel drums were seen in use for the first time. I was 10 days old. My mother had to be taking me somewhere, and the sound of that drum had to somehow get into my brain, and it has never moved. So from that progression, where I grew up, by the time I was 8 or 10, in the neighborhood, there was a steel band that was forming with older guys. I was 8 or 10, and the name of the band was Gem Stars. That would have been in the 50s. In the mid-80s, I was asked to go to various schools and do workshops on steel drums. And to cut a long story short, in a 2-year period, I ended up in the faculty of teachers. I became a teacher, and I introduced steel drums as a credit course for the TDSB in 5 schools. And now there are about 40 or 50 schools in the GTA that has a regular steel band course. And some of the high schools offer it as a credit course. And you have a steel band at York University, and you have one at the University of Toronto. And in a way, looking back, having participated in the very first caribana, I played my steel drum around my neck with an orchestra with horns and saxophones and stuff. I was the only panist there. And I played all over Toronto, and I tried to develop steel drums. And when I see there's so many steel bands in Toronto, and I feel so happy when I see that, to know I had a part in sort of helping develop that here. But I knew that this Caribbean festival, it was going to be a gift to Canada for the Centennial year, the birthday of Canada for 100 years. And the Caribbean community got together. They were mostly professionals, men and women who would come up here and study and become doctors and lawyers and stuff. And they were about a 10-year ahead of the immigrant who would have come in the mid-60s when Canada started taking immigrants. And so the festival started at Varsity Stadium, and it was spontaneous. The morning I actually had to get a hitchhiker ride from Wasaga Beach all the way down to 400, and got in time around 11 o'clock to the parade. And it was a spontaneous type of parade. There were a few bands. We were walking on the street, and we went along East and Bloor Street and South and Yonge Street. And it was very fun, a whole lot of fun. And at the end of the parade, you take a ferry and go over to the island. And for an entire week, there was a celebration on the island, and there were participation by at least 10 various Caribbean islands that had booths there, the tourist booths, and they had souvenirs and food and stuff like that. And it brought the community together in such a way that it sort of perhaps launched my music career, because I picked up so many contacts. We were playing music there, and I kept playing music throughout the year from then. Then the community, within a month or two, you'd see papers and the Toronto Star saying, could caribana be held another time? And the Canadian community, because there were more Canadians taking part, there were more Canadian musicians taking part than Caribbean musicians. But it brought out the Caribbean people, and everybody wanted to have it for another year, so the committee got together and they did it for another year, and for another year, and another year, and another year, and it's been 47 years. This drum is made in the authentic design that's tenor pans or soprano pans were initially made in by Ellie Manet. It's called the F-sharp in the middle tenor pan, or it's called the Invaders type tenor pan. Today, it's almost not in use. There are 1 or 2 people who played. Professor, a pan player named Professor, he uses it as well, and a couple other people. It's difficult to play. The notes are scattered in arrangements similar to the keyboard of a typewriter. It's all over the place. The new instrument, the layout of the notes are very simple. It's very methodical. So this one, there are very many accidentals, and it's difficult to perfect, to make. Like you shouldn't have a note like D. next to C sharp. So to perfect it had to be really a lot of skills. It's an instrument that I love to play, and I can play it with my eyes shut. Steel pan, and pan is a name that Trinidadians used. When we came to North America, for some reason, they likened it to the marching drum type of instrument. And the word was introduced here without our control. So it became a steel drum band. And that's how that part of it came. The instrument is made from an oil drum, and it's true, it's a steel drum. And if you have a collection of steel drums, various instruments in an orchestra, it becomes a steel band. But Trinidadians like to call it a pan. And the reason is that it was not always this size. It started off with a paint pan, a smaller size drum that had only 2 notes. Actually, the guy just played on 1 note until there was a dent, and he played on either side of the dent and got 2 tones. And therein the idea came, and then somebody used a larger drum and they introduced more notes until we developed it into a perfect instrument. The steel drum is the only instrument that has been invented in the last 100 years. The steel drum, and I'm saying steel drum, pan, is the easiest way, I believe, to learn to play instrument, to learn to play music. It's the easiest instrument to begin to learn to play music with. You will be able to master it within 1 hour, or you might think you're mastering it. The next day, you're going to have to come and work and develop skills, but you can see results almost immediately. Steel drums, pan is the only instrument invented in Western civilization. Well, steel band actually was founded in a parade, was born in a parade. Before the steel drums, in Trinidad, music was expressed by using pieces of bamboos of different lengths. They got the short, fat one and the tall, skinny one, and 2 in between, the bass bamboo, the fule bamboo, and the cutter bamboo. And they played it by stomping it on the ground like that and keep different rhythms like that. Somebody in a parade at carnival time grabbed a lady's paint can because he was so consumed by the rhythm, and he started to just play along with whatever he found. And he played, and that's the little paint can I referred to. And therein he got 2 sounds. But other people noticed steel, metal was making sounds, nice sounds. And then the birth of the steel band happened. When I came to Canada, I realized that playing steel drums, after a while, you'd lose contact with the audience. The Canadians, the Canadian ear, the North American ear is used to vocaling a lot more than instrumentation. So I had to give a voice to the pan, and I had to drag it along. So I got the strap around my neck again, and I would sing calypsos, and in the chorus, I'd play along with the band. And the audience would scream. And the last few years, I haven't been doing it. But this summer, I'm going to be doing it again. Last year, carnival, big bacchanal. I went to Lime by Lamport Stadium. 14 steel band, big competition. They want to see which is the best one. When we reached the gate, Jeff and I was late, so we jumped the fence just to get closer. The band they had on stage had the crowd in a rage, was fantasy under the stars.